And sometimes whenever you're a little kid and you dream of achieving something, it happens. If you put in the time and dedication and perseverance toward making something like that happen, it could come true, and it did for myself. I wanted to become the next Steven Spielberg or next Martin Scorsese, however, and I thought to myself that that was exactly what was going to happen. I worked really hard through college. I worked really hard to get a career at CBS Sports, where I became one of the youngest highlight writers in the history of the NFL today, in NCAA college football and basketball. Not that that was necessarily everything that I was looking for. I always wanted to make movies, and so I sat back and I dug myself into, of all places, central Pennsylvania, where I'm from. I was born and raised in a small town called Altoona. Not a lot of people there think about the topic that I'm about to cover with you, and that's unfortunate because as I was doing research and as I was trying to find myself in my career, what I wanted to do, which I was so passionate about, I knew I wanted to make a difference as well, not just through film, but through my actions. So the one thing that inspired me most of my entire life was having a child. This issue that I'm going to talk about is one of serious consequences for each and every single one of us. I discovered somehow the one common thing that every single human being across this planet has within themselves right now. Now, despite your age, despite your religious background, despite your sex, despite the geographic area where you live, everyone is affected by this one thing. So if we have all a common ground now to cover, that means that we have a responsibility, right? I decided as I wanted to become a filmmaker, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I decided, again, to make that difference. And whenever I had married my wife, she got pregnant very quickly. And then she had an early miscarriage. It took about 4 weeks for that to happen. It was upsetting, as it is to just about anyone who goes through something like that. So we sat back, listened to the doctors. They said, well, these things just happen. It's natural. That's just how nature has a way of saying that you weren't ready, your body wasn't ready, the baby wasn't ready. So we took that at face value and assumed as much. Then, it was 2 months later, she got pregnant again. And I was on pins and needles the whole time. It took 9 months, of course. My son was born, Braden. We had a healthy baby. And I thought we were out of the woods at that point. I thought everything was going to be perfect from here on out, no more problems. Because that first miscarriage, I was absolutely devastated when I, at 30 years old, had to tell my parents on Easter Sunday that they were going to be grandparents again, and it was really exciting for me to experience something like that, and then we lost the baby days later. We had our son, and then after, again, I thought we were out of the woods, everything was going to be perfect. My wife and I decided we wanted to have another child. The first one was such a pain in the butt, we thought we might as well go for another one, right? So she got pregnant again rather quickly, and then lost this one at 6 weeks. At that point, the journalist inside of myself, the filmmaker that I wanted to be, was finding a direction to go. Because on that day, I was so hurt and angry and upset, and I heard the same thing again from the same doctors. We don't know why miscarriages happen. I believed them, and I still do. However, it was my role as an individual, as a citizen, and as a filmmaker. I wanted to look into this a little bit further if there was something else connected that nobody else was really thinking about. So, my wife, after she had a DNC, a couple weeks went by, and she said, she was having some acne issues. Her hormones were out of balance. And then she said, well, have you ever looked at what's inside of this acne medication? I looked up to her, I said, no, hon, what's in it? She said, well, there's 5 carcinogens inside of this. And I thought, how on earth was it that I was able to buy something like that? How on earth was it that you were able to use something like that? Doesn't the federal government know that there are carcinogens in something like this? Could that have caused something like this to happen? So in central Pennsylvania, not exactly the mecca for Hollywood productions, I went out and I bought a camera and I started doing some research and I started doing some digging. And what I found throughout that process, it took me 4 years and I created a film that's called Unacceptable Levels. What you're looking at are some stills from the film. Each and every individual has something to do with this. They're all a big part of the research that I did. They're all a big part of it because they dedicated their lives to trying to understand something that very few of us do. All of us right now are affected by this, and there's numerous ways why, especially Homer Simpson. He's been having some real issues with this, obviously. Now, chemicals. What are they? It's a great question because typically when you look on the side of anything, if you look at all, you're going to have a lot of difficulty unless you're a chemist to know what is in many of those products that we see inside of our homes every single day. What does that mean for all of us? My dedication is to these little people right here. Every single thing that I do as a father, as a filmmaker, as an individual, as a person, is because of them. I don't ever want to deviate from that because it is my mission to ensure that they are kept safe every single day. And that's every parent across the spectrum. They all feel that way. I'm certain of it. But Ralph Nader said something to me one afternoon whenever I had the opportunity to interview him. He said, this is as if a quiet violence is happening to every single one of us. Chemicals which are not invited into our bodies are there. Chemicals that we don't necessarily know anything about and what they're going to do to us are already there. What's that mean for us long term? There's 80,000 chemicals in our system of commerce today. It is the very backbone of everything that we do. There isn't a single process that we go through daily that doesn't have something to do with chemicals. It is the basis of our existence in this modern society in a global fashion. Knowing this is the case, and we hear a lot about pollution all the time as well, but the pollution is inside of all of us. The United States produces 300 billion pounds every single year of chemicals. It's a lot. How much is that? It gives us so many chemicals that we have 232 synthetic industrial compounds inside of your bodies right now. Many of you don't know anything about that. And you might say, well, so what? 232 chemicals? Give or take, that might not be a bad thing, right? Well, an average American creates or uses 1,500 pounds of chemicals every single year. Think about that for a moment. 1,500 pounds of chemicals are used every single year by us. And you don't think about it. I don't think about it. Why should we? We're so busy. Every step of the way, every moment of the day, we're so busy doing what we're doing. We're working hard. We're trying to make our families happy. And all of those things are great, and they should be happening at all times. I completely agree. Until I come across a term like this, ubiquitous. Now, this is a word that I shouldn't have ever known throughout my entire lifetime. But ubiquitous is a term that means ever-present. Ever-present. Ubiquitous means that chemicals and carcinogens, hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors, reproductive disorders, reproductive chemicals that will affect us, they're ubiquitous. They're in our system of commerce every single day. And what they could be doing to us, that's a great question. Let's think about this for a moment. Just about all of us know somebody who has it, who has come down with it, who has to face the challenge every single day of what this word means. They have to talk to an oncologist to make a determination about how their procedure is going to go. It's a terrifying ordeal. There's no doubt about it. And this accounts for 1 in every 4 deaths in the United States. 1 in every 2 men, 1 in every 3 women, 1 in every 330 children. That's an awful lot of individuals, isn't it? So, if it's going to be those numbers, is it going to be me or is it going to be you who has to talk to that oncologist? And then the real process begins. where you sit back and you start thinking more and more about how that happened. How that happened to you. $260 billion is spent annually in the United States to treat this horrific disease. That doesn't even come close to demonstrating the real cost, and that's emotional, that's families, that's what they're going through every single day. So this cost isn't rolled into this number, but it is an astounding number when you even think about it. How about autism? Even from the time that I made my film, 2 years ago, whenever I said a number, I said 1 in every 110 children were affected by autism. Guess what? 2 years later, now they have a new figure. We're headed in the wrong direction. There's absolutely no doubt about that. 1 in every 68 is an astronomically high number. How much is that every single year? That's $35 billion. Kind of high as well. Who bears most of this cost? Families and schools. It costs $17,000 per year to educate a child with autism right now. So to me, protecting those two and ensuring that this doesn't happen to any other child or any other adult or anyone out there is what I found to be the prerogative. That needed to be my perspective, right? I turned my attention to what I've been having a lot of conversations in this country about the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, health care. How much does that cost the nation every single year? Now, that is a staggeringly high number. $3.1 trillion is spent on our sicknesses to treat them, to deal with them, to somehow combat them. Right? Now, an average person just to have insurance, think about these numbers. $5,615 per individual to have insurance. An average family is $15,745 just to have insurance. So what does that mean? Why am I correlating these two things together when it comes to chemicals and healthcare? What could these little things inside of our bodies that act like drugs, that act like hormones, that are completely synthetic, what are they doing there in the first place, and how do they help us if they're nothing but a detriment? They're called toxic chemicals for a very explicit and very good reason. This is a picture of my wife, like a lot of women, puts on a lot of skincare products. Why would they do something like that? When you have a lot of ads preaching to you about skin cancer, trying to prevent skin cancer, then you wind up doing a lot of things to avoid that. You want to make sure that you're preventing those types of cancers from happening to you. An average woman puts on 126 unique chemicals every single day. That's before you even walk out the door. Does anybody think about that? I certainly hope so. Because 1/3 of those are linked to cancer. Okay, if 1/3 of those are linked to cancer, and that's just with personal care products, what does law have to say about something like this? The EPA, they're watching out for us, right? They know what's happening. They've been the watchdog group trying to ensure our safety since day one, right? They're out there. The FDA, the CDC, that's what we put them in place to do, to ensure our safety one way or another. How about food? Food has so many different chemicals in it, it's very, very difficult to look at any of the labels on the side of a package and to know anything about them. How many people ate a pesticide today? How many people ate a coal tar-derived product? How many people out here, have swallowed something that is an insecticide? All of us, unless you're eating something that's completely organic. So, if no one's protecting us, what is there? Is there some kind of legislation that has something to do with this? Of course, yeah. We have a law that was passed in 1938 talking about personal care products and food. You got the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act passed in 1938 to regulate chemicals in this sphere. The documentation is clear. There's a whole 1.5 pages that governs over all of those chemicals every single day that we're going to be eating or ingesting through our skin. 1.5 pages of legislation to do that. And then you sit back and you consider, well, how about, the Toxic Substances Control Act? This is something that was passed in 1976. This is another piece of legislation that's a little bit curious to me. Why? There were 60,000 chemicals in their system of commerce before this law was passed. So those 60,000 chemicals were grandfathered in. They were allowed to pass through, and they only knew about 5% of those could have any harm whatsoever. Why? They didn't have any information about toxicity on those chemicals whatsoever. Okay, all right. Well, we as a society have to make some real decisions. I don't mean to bring everybody down either. I hope you all feel good about hearing something like that. Why? It's a challenge for us. We have to feel empowered by something like that. Never on this earth should we feel depressed or anxious or downtrodden in any way. This is our moment, every single one of us. This is our moment where we're ignoring something that affects every single one of you, every single person on this planet adversely. There's not a toxic chemical out there that has been proven to do anybody good. Lead, for instance, asbestos, for instance, DDT, PCBs, pesticides. None of those have been proven to do a body good. They have not increased anyone's lifespan. They haven't made life better for anybody. This is a detriment for every single one of us. Now, that could be misconceived as depressing. To me, I feel like this is our moment finally. If we're all associated under one cause, it could be this and it should be this. Why? We're all going to have children. The womb is treated like a charity. It has no profit center. The womb, the most precious aspect of our entire human civilization, is treated like a charity. How could that be when that is what's next for all of us? If that's our children that we're talking about, how on earth could we sit back and say anything is more precious? Dare I say, I can't say that. So for me, from myself to you, I made a documentary. I spent 4 years being immersed literally in toxic chemicals. It was an experience. Needless to say, it was an experience. I made a film, and I made a lot of friends, and hopefully I can make a difference. Because this little person deserves it, and your little people deserve it too. Your kids and your grandkids are begging right now for your attention to take care of them in a way you may not have thought about trying before. And I know you want to do it. I know you can do it. And I know you feel like whenever you're going to go out of this room, you, in a small way, can make a difference starting right now. In the products that you're buying and you're inviting into your home, you're inviting it into your body. Whenever you don't know something that's on the side of a label, you can't pronounce it, you feel like you need to go get lab testing to make a determination whether this is safe or not, don't. The only recommendation and advice I can give to anybody, relax. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to take small steps. It took us 100 years to get into this problem. It might take us 100 years to get back out of it. Feel determined, feel brave, feel courageous, and feel like now, even though I can't see it, maybe I can smell it, maybe I can feel it. Right now, you're going to have a chance to make the biggest difference in human history. And this was the biggest unnatural disaster to ever happen to us. We collectively, as a unit and as human beings, will make a difference, I promise you. So this isn't just about a film. This is about change. This speech is about change. And hopefully, all of us will be that change, starting right now today. I really appreciate it.